At 45 years old with $1.2 million saved, you could still be dangerously behind. It sounds a bit crazy, but there are in fact plenty of people with seven-figure balances who still lie awake at night wondering if they've done enough, or if they've done too much and missed out on life along the way. A number like that means freedom to most people. But what they don't tell you about having $1 million retirement account is there's no magic number. It's really about understanding what that money can actually do for you and where the line is for you between oversaving and living a full life. We'll break down the numbers in this video, as well as some difficult mindset shifts that come with it that I see as a CPA and financial advisor who works with content creators and business owners every day. First, do me a favor real quick and sneak into the like button's 401k and send an early distribution to the subscribe button. Now, let's see if that million plus is really freedom or your main source of stress. Meet Alex. Alex is 45 years old, hustling in his career, and has managed to save up an impressive $1.2 million in retirement accounts. On paper, that number looks incredible, but to understand what it really means, let's put Alex's situation into context. The reality is that most people Alex's age aren't anywhere close to that figure. According to national data, the median 401k balance for people between 45 and 54 is just about $68,000. If you zoom out to look at total retirement savings across all types of accounts, 401ks, IRAs, and other nest eggs, the median's still only around 115K. Even when you look at averages, which tend to be inflated by a small group of very high savers, the numbers still come in at just a few hundred thousand. So when you put Alex's 1.2 million against those benchmarks, the difference is night and day. That balance puts Alex in pretty much as high a tier of savers as you can be, well into the 90th percentile, which the 99th percentile for people 45 to 49 is just shy of $1.4 million. So Alex is brushing shoulders with the top 1% of retirement savers in the country. But being ahead on paper doesn't always mean you feel secure. That's what makes Alex such a relatable case study. The numbers suggest Alex is far beyond the average. But the real question is, does 1.2 million at age 45 mean Alex is set for life? Or is there still a gap between the balance and the lifestyle Alex actually wants? Think of it this way, using a few guardrails planners lean on. First, Fidelity gives us some milestones like by age 45, a solid checkpoint is having roughly 4x your current salary saved. By 50, that's up to 6x. And these don't tell you when specifically to retire, but they do flag whether your savings pace roughly matches your income and lifestyle so far. If Alex earns 200K, for example, 4x at 45 would mean about 800K. At 1.2 million, Alex is ahead of that marker. Next is the 25x spending target, which is the classic way to back into a nest egg using the 4% rule. Start with what you want to spend each year in retirement, multiply it by 25, and you've got a ballpark portfolio target. Flipped around for Alex's current balance, 1.2 million supports about 48,000 in year one withdrawals, adjusted for inflation thereafter. This isn't a promise or a guarantee. It's a starting point that assumes long-term average returns and a multi-decade horizon. But it is useful because it anchors the plan to spending, not just a big round number. And if you shift that to a different lens, the 75% income replacement guideline is a general income target for once you stop working to cover about 75% of your income pre-retirement. The 25% difference is because your income taxes are lower. No more payroll taxes, kids are out of the house, etc. So if Alex earns 100K, that implies 75K per year in retirement spending. To fund that entirely from investments at 4% would point to roughly 1.9 million, which is a bigger number than Alex has. So which rule matters most? Well, they answer different questions. The 4% and 25x method is expense first, which means the 4% and 25x methods are expense first. How much lifestyle can your savings? The replacement method is income first. Like, how much of your paycheck do you want to replace? In practice, we'll blend them, then refine with taxes, Social Security, and timing. First, let's take Alex's 1.2 million and run it through the engine that really matters, cash flow. This is where retirement planning goes from being just about balances to more about the lifestyle those balances can support. We'll start with income sources. Like most Americans, Social Security will eventually play a role for Alex. If Alex waits until full retirement age, somewhere between 66 and 67, depending on birth year, the benefit might be around 35 to 40K per year. If Alex claims as early as possible at 62, that number's a bit less, And if you wait until 70, it's a bit more. And in case there's a pension, part-time work, or annuity in the picture, those would also be added to this layer of guaranteed income. Side note, if you're tired of guessing what to pay yourself, I built a free 10-minute mini audit that shows you exactly where your money should go. It's simple, fast, and will leave you feeling way more confident about your cash flow. Grab it using the link in the description. Then we outline expenses, and not just the obvious ones. Main spending areas like housing, utilities, and food. Lifestyle goals such as travel and hobbies, healthcare, both before Medicare at 65 and after, plus insurance premiums and out-of-pocket costs. And of course, taxes, because that's one of, if not the biggest expense of all. Once we got those queued up, we can find the gap. Total expenses minus guaranteed income equals the net withdrawal Alex will need from the portfolio each year. At first glance, Alex might worry that spending $60K a year on retirement looks like a 5% draw on the $1.2 million. But here's the key distinction. Once Social Security kicks in, the portfolio doesn't need to cover the whole thing. After offsetting it with the other income sources, the actual withdrawal rate can drop closer to 2 to 3%, which is way more sustainable. This is when most people breathe a little sigh of relief. The gross spending dollars might feel scary, but the true withdrawal rate tells a different story. Now that we mapped out Alex's cash flow, the next step is to project what this portfolio might actually do over time. For simplicity, let's use a long-term average return of around 6% a year. That's a reasonable planning assumption based on historical stock and bond mixes, but it comes with caveats. Markets don't move in straight lines. Some years soar and others crash. Sequence of return risk, which is the order in which good and bad years happen, can dramatically change outcomes. That's why it's crucial to look at balances in both nominal dollars, which is the raw account value, as well as in real dollars, which takes out inflation to tell you purchasing power today. In other words, a $3 million portfolio at age 85 might really only feel like $1.5 million if prices double in the meantime. We also layer in Monte Carlo simulations, which run thousands of possible market paths to show a probability of success. If Alex sees a 90% success rate, that's reassuring, but it's not a guarantee. What matters more is staying flexible, because going from age 45 to 90 or 100 on your portfolio and fixed income leaves a lot of room for changes. To do this means adjusting spending in down years and leaning on Social Security as a safety net. So now I think we all see that Alex's numbers look great on paper, but here's where things get interesting, because money alone doesn't erase the most common fear people face in retirement, which is running out of money. Studies show that nearly 64% of Americans are scared of outliving their money. They'd rather actually die than run out of money. And Alex is right in the thick of Gen X, which is the generation between 45 and 55, where about 70% say they're worried about running out of savings. Think about that. 7 out of 10 people in Alex's shoes carry this fear around every single day. And the cherry on top is that fear doesn't always vanish when you have 7 figures in the bank. Tons of big savers admit that they feel terrified to spend even when the math says that they're safe. They've spent years and years honing that muscle of saving, and now the thought of drawing down the accounts feels like breaking the rules. This shows that retirement isn't only about numbers. The psychological 180 from saving to spend is a much bigger hurdle than most people realize. And there's another side of this coin too, the guilt of oversaving. It's a tragedy to work those extra 5-10 years and grind through the long hours just to find out you didn't need the money after all. You traded the experiences, travel, time with family, all for a pile of money that you may never fully enjoy. That's why the die with zero philosophy has gotten so much traction recently. It's a simple idea. Money's just stored life energy. If you don't spend it on meaningful experiences, you've essentially worked for free. So, Alex's dilemma is almost more of an emotional one than it is financial. Too much versus not enough isn't about the raw dollar amount. It's about the fear of scarcity on one side and the regret of missed opportunities on the other. One voice says, don't spend, you might need it later. And the other's whispering, what if later never comes? That tug of war is where most savers live, and it's why the right answer isn't just a calculator result. You have to actually match your plan with the values, purpose, and the life you actually want to live. That's why some experts flip that around. Instead of saving every possible dollar, they suggest a little more balance by aiming to save around 20% of your income, and then give yourself permission to spend the rest guilt-free. That way, you're still preparing for the future, but you're not sacrificing the present either. People who have annuitized income from sources like Social Security, pensions, or annuities actually spend about twice as much in retirement as those relying solely on their investment accounts. That's pretty powerful, and it's because having that guaranteed check coming in every month takes away the worry of using up the portfolio too quickly. It gives retirees more confidence to enjoy their hard-earned savings. For Alex, the lesson is clear. The goal isn't to die with the biggest account balance, it's to live a life that feels rich along the way. The best plan blends discipline and intentionality. With enough security to sleep well at night, and enough freedom to create the experiences that you won't regret missing. Look at how the rules of the game have shifted in 2025. We live in crazy times. For this year, the 401k limit has increased to $23,500, while the IRA contribution limit remains at $7,000. For high earners, Roth IRA income phase-out ranges also rose, which gives a little more flexibility to contribute directly before needing to use a backdoor strategy. And the relief is there's still no caps on total retirement balances and no bans on the popular backdoor Roth conversion, at least not yet. On the Social Security side, the full retirement age for those born in 1959 is now 66 years and 10 months. For anyone born in 1960 or later, it's a flat 67. That means if Alex is 45 today, their FRA will be 67. And deciding what age is the best time to start will play a huge role in the overall plan. The main point I want you all to remember is laws will change, the limits rise, deductions shift, and all the crazy stuff in between, but that's all out of your control. You have to go back to the timeless principles and focus on what you can control. Spend wisely, save consistently, invest for growth, and protect against risk. This is where Alex faces a fork in the road. On one hand, there's the FIRE movement, or financial independence, retire early. The math is pretty straightforward. If you can accumulate around 25x of your annual spending, you're in a position to step away from work in your 40s or 50s. For Alex, that means if their lifestyle only requires 40 or 50K a year, the 1.2 million portfolio is right in the ballpark to make an early exit. Being able to reclaim time whilst you're still young enough to enjoy it is the dream for most FIRE followers. Where FIRE is a little back road, the big crowded highway is traditional retirement. The average retirement age in the US is about 61, with most people waiting until the mid-60s to make the big move. And that's not just a cultural thing, it's also practical. Working longer lets your Social Security benefits grow, cuts down the years you have to draw down on savings, and a lot of times lines up with healthcare milestones like Medicare. So Alex faces the classic battle. Technically, the numbers could support an early retirement lifestyle, but emotionally, they may feel safer continuing to work, growing that portfolio, and locking in more certainty before making the... At this point, Alex has all the options in the world. Having choice like that is the real meaning of financial independence to me, and the power of having 1.2 million saved by 45. Let's look at the three ways Alex could go. Scenario A, you spend more. So Alex could loosen the budget belt and enjoy more now, say upgrading lifestyle expenses from 60 to 70K a year. Because of Social Security kicking in later and the relatively modest withdrawal rate, the portfolio is still durable. The numbers suggest that even with a little extra spending, Alex stays well within the sustainable 3 to 4% withdrawal range. Scenario B is upgrade travel. So suppose Alex decides to invest more in experiences like extended vacations, bringing family along, or splurging on the bucket list trips. Even with the higher travel costs for the next decade, the long-term withdrawal rate still sits in the safe 2 to 3% zone once you factor in the guaranteed income. The portfolio is resilient enough to handle those memories without threatening security. Scenario C is keep saving and focus on the legacy. So last but not least, you could keep the current savings pace and continue building that wealth and intentionally earmark a legacy for kids or charities. In this case, the account balance grows big time, but what you get in return is less spending flexibility now. Each path is valid, but what it really comes down to is your priorities. Do you want to live a bigger life now and create richer memories, or focus on building the financial legacy. And by no means are you stuck with one choice forever. So where does all of this leave Alex and maybe you? The truth is, none of this is really about whether the 1.2 million at 45 is too much or not enough. The real question to ask yourself is whether your money is aligned with your values. Financial independence isn't just a number. It's the freedom to choose how you live. If happiness and experiences today matter most to you, then give yourself that permission to spend without guilt, as long as you're not hurting future you. If leaving a legacy for your kids or a cause lights you up, then save with purpose. Either way, the goal is the same, being intentional. Don't leave joy sitting on the table out of fear, and don't leave behind a legacy by accident. Make the choice that reflects the life you want to live. Remember, every projection, chart, and percentage is just a big assumption. It's not a guarantee. Life happens and markets change, but your ability to use money in a meaningful way to you is timeless. If this breakdown helped you, hit subscribe for more videos that cut through the noise and bring clarity to your financial journey. And if you want to dive deeper, check out the description below for resources to help you map out your own plan. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy creating.